YouTube, welcome to the Do Not Disturb podcast. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's usually three people, and usually we have a different host, but unfortunately, our host, Drew Pelter, couldn't make it this evening, so I am stepping in as a co host. My name is Nimmer Monekas. This is Darian Pickett, and we are the Do Not Disturb podcast. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms, like and subscribe the pod, as well as join in every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tomorrow Drew will be back, so come back and see him as well. So, hey Darian, how was your weekend?
Yeah, it was a blast to say the least. It was great to finally be back with the homies and do what we do best, and that being drinking and then drafting. So I think it was a fantastic weekend out there in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, and as for the people that do not know, we did have our draft weekend this weekend, which was a blast, as Darian said. We had 10 people come in, and it was even. I feel like it was a lot more special. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Um, the it was even more special because we eight of us actually met in Las Vegas
Mhm.
with a little bit of layover, and then we all met in Vegas, and then we all flew in the same flight to to Spokane, and then we drove to Coeur d'Alene. So it was very special. I really enjoyed it. What were your highs for the weekend, and then what would you change for the weekend?
Yeah, first and foremost, like you mentioned, being able to fly as a group and take over the way back of the plane, just be obnoxious, be in our little group, and also have some fans on the plane where they saw Kaysen wearing the inaugural um, toilet seat. This one was a little bit cleaner than last year's. But that was really cool to see people take pictures of him, be in the back of the plane, ask him like what was going on, what happened, what'd you do, and him have to repeat that he lost in fantasy. It was great to see and be a part of. That was definitely a high, but also the location that we picked. That Airbnb was flat out gorgeous. I were just going down the steep staircases. That was the con of how steep it was. I almost fell first day. Didn't even have a beer in me. Almost took it 10 stairs down. But once you get down to the dock, it was like rolling mountains, trees, and then just a beautiful blue lake. It was a little cold, but still, nonetheless, it was so gorgeous to be out there in the wilderness like that.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that was definitely fun. So Kaysen also lost was the worst record last year, and as we mentioned in previous episodes, that was our punishment where he had to wear a toilet seat all the way until the draft. So he had to, and our draft was Saturday, so we from Thursday right when he walked into the airport, which was kind of nice. Me, Ricky, and Kaysen all flew together from Phoenix to Vegas, so we put the toilet seat on him, and he had to walk around the airport, go through TSA with the toilet seat on. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, the Airbnb was gorgeous, beautiful lakeside view. Yeah. So what would you change from for next year?
Yeah, just going off on that, just how gorgeous one the Airbnb was and being lakeside. Definitely missed the chance of going since we were up at Hayden Lake as opposed to Coeur d'Alene. Uh, Missed that opportunity of being able to go down to Coeur d'Alene, sightsee a little bit. Got a minute of it on Sunday for our travel day. We went out and ate at a brewery out there, but definitely would perhaps alter one of our days that we get in, perhaps do some sightseeing as a group, just to have a more abundant and fruitful kind of trip. Have one, be with the boys, have our party, have our draft, but also sightsee, see the city that we're going to, and not waste that too much time being at the Airbnb. I would love to do a little bit more travel.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can say that I went to Coeur d'Alene, but I can't say that I saw Coeur d'Alene.
Mhm.
I think that You're absolutely correct. Especially if we start going to other places around the United States, to say that you visited is different than just hanging out in the Airbnb all day. Um, or it just makes it difficult when, um, we have 10 guys under the influence and nobody's able to drive. And Ubers, cost an arm and a leg for 10 people. So
Mm.
that's why I feel like that's why we really didn't do it this year. But I think you're right, just dedicating like a morning and going and exploring the city, either whether it be downtown or even just driving around and seeing everything. I think that would be pretty nice, besides just going to the grocery store to just get more alcohol and get some essentials. So I feel like that was the only exploration that we really did.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's go on to our first segment of the day, which is around the league news. So usually the beginning of the season, or when we're approaching the season, we're 2 weeks away. There isn't too many news headlines, but there was one huge one this week. But before we get into that, we'll go over the injury report. So, on the injury report, there are a couple nicks and scrapes from some players. As if you have already drafted, you kind of see the questionable behind their names and stuff like that. But the main injuries that we're going to talk about are the people on the physically unable to perform list, or the PUP list. The Browns are expecting to leave Nick Chubb on the PUP list. That makes him ineligible to play for at least 4 games. Same goes for the Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Brooks, Ravens running back Keenan Mitchell, who you were really high on last year, Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson, Rams tight end Tyler Higbee, and Patriots wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. Hopefully I'm saying that name right.
No, you got that one
All
right.
right, the throws me off at the end of his name. But and also Colts tight end Jalini Woods has been placed on injury reserve for his recent toe injury, ending his season. With all those names, is there anybody that you would still be willing to draft, even though they're not going to play for the first 4 games?
Yeah, I mean, to draft, I think there's two of them that you mentioned. It's Jonathan Brooks, running back for the Carolina Panthers. Just to handcuff him once he does get back after the 4 weeks that he's going to be out. He's probably going to split time with Chuba, but definitely is a good piece to have on your bench going forward. Even having him in that IR slot and then going on to waivers right now and picking up somebody else just to fill out your full team till he gets back. So use that to your advantage. If you do have Jonathan Brooks or want to pick him up, you can slide him into your IR slot. Outside of that, also Chubb, you could do the same thing with him being out 4 weeks. The stock for Jerome Ford is skyrocketing for the first couple of weeks. So definitely be high on him in your drafts. Or if you already have drafted, maybe gun for him in like a low ball trade, I would say, because of that looming threat of Chubb coming back into the season. So those are the two that I would draft. I also did see some news that Odell is going to be out for the first 4 weeks. And then also A.J. Dillon is going to be out for the season for the Packers.
Well,
So definitely stock is rising for Marshawn Lloyd. So be on the lookout for him on waivers. He also is questionable. He's, I believe, dealing with a neck injury or some kind of issue there. So have him in the back of your mind going forward as well. Because, I mean, outside of Josh Jacobs, it's him.
yeah, and I feel like Green Bay does like that dual threat running back as well. Yeah, and I think out of the whole list, I feel like the only person I'm really willing to draft is Nick Chubb. I think that if anybody can come off a devastating knee injury, it would be the person that is able to squat 400 pounds after the knee injury. And I really wanted him this year, but unfortunately, somebody drafted him really high on our list. But we'll talk about that in a further episode. But yeah, another person on the injury report is Deron Bland. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks due to a stress fracture. If you don't know the name, you might recognize him by the cornerback of the Cowboys that got 5 touchdowns last year. So he had 5 touchdowns altogether. Accumulatively, the Cowboys had 6 touchdowns, so he had 5 out of the 6 touchdowns on the Cowboys defense, making them the highest scoring defense in the league. Any thoughts on this? And do you think this is a big injury for the Cowboys, or do you think that with Trayvon Diggs coming back, he will kind of step into his role?
I mean, you could sure as hell hope that he comes and steps in like he was. But I like that's two of your top corners hurt or out. But I mean, obviously with Diggs coming back, there like I've seen some videos. He's a little bit slower of a step. I did see one where he did get burnt, but he does have still some nice recovery speed. But if I'm drafting defenses, especially late rounds, I'm a little cautious about the Dallas defense, especially with the defensive coordinator leaving, going to the Commanders to be a head coach. That's an issue. But then also losing one of your top corners that stepped up when Diggs left last year, and then Diggs coming back off a knee injury. There's a lot of question marks there going forward. So I would fade Dallas's defense if I was a fantasy owner that's looking at these defenses coming up. I definitely would be wary on picking the Dallas defense going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think because they got Diggs back, but they also lost 2 of their top corners and their defensive coordinator, I feel like their defense is definitely not going to be as good as they were last year. And I feel like nowadays there's much better defenses out there. I mean, the Steelers, there's the Browns, the Jets defense are going to be good. The Falcons defense are going to be good.
Saints
So I feel
defense is
like
up there
there's,
too.
huh?
Saints defense is up there too.
The
They're a
Saints
sneaky little ad.
exactly. They're probably the most sneaky defense in the league. But so I feel like this is going to make me fade the Cowboys defense as well. And I actually during the draft I was tempted to pick them, but because of their easy schedule, the way I look at defense is based off schedule because you're playing, your division games at least twice a year. So I like picking defenses with easier division, but so I was looking at the Cowboys because they have the Giants, the Giants and the Commanders, but so it really only leaves the Eagles that I really have to worry about. But with this injury and Stephon Gilmore leaving, I am definitely fading them.
Mhm.
Going on to speaking of Cowboys, there has been recent news, and what's up, Drew? Drew's in. We
Hey,
got. um, but speaking of Cowboys, CD Lamb and the Cowboys have reached an agreement finally. CD Lamb agreed to a 4-year, $136 million deal that now makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in the league. And as earlier this offseason, the highest paid non-quarterback is Justin Jefferson. However, the deal also includes a $38 million signing bonus, which is the largest ever given to a wide receiver. Plus, CD is only 1 year, $1 million below Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson's getting paid 36 and
35,
CD's getting
36.
paid 35. So, thoughts on this?
Like you mentioned, finally, pay the man. I said that in an earlier episode. Uh, that with Jerry Jones, there's no urgency. Yes, there is to get one of your cornerstone athletes on that field. Pay him. You did that. You paid him just below what Justin Jefferson is. You could argue that they're 1A, 1B when it comes to wide receiver ones. So I lean towards CD, actually, despite being a Commanders fan. I do like CD and how explosive he is, especially now being his fantasy owner. I'm a little biased as well. But I'm happy because I was looking at that out sign on my roster and was not happy. So when they finally signed and made a deal, it was happy days, just like every other CD Lamb owner out there.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of brings up a question of, all right, well, you paid CD, you still have to pay Micah. Are you going to pay Dak? So it kind of brings out those type of questions. Do you think that the Cowboys waited too long? Do you think that this was going to affect CD Lamb's, not his whole entire season? Do you think it's going to affect his first couple weeks because we're 2 weeks away from the season and now he's starting to practice?
No, just with some of the things that I've seen that he's been out there working out, keeping up with his trainings, I think he'll be fine going into it. I think the system hasn't changed all that much under McCarthy, so he's going to be come in and be a seamless spot there, like he never left or like he never held out. I think he'll be pretty good. There may be some disconnect with Dak initially, but I think towards the end of he's going to be just fine.
See, I think towards the end of the season they're gonna try to ease CD into it. I think the first week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe they're only gonna keep him in red zone and third down. I don't think that they're gonna just give him the whole entire green light. I think they're gonna ease him in because it is gonna be a long season, and the worst thing that a team can do is lose their best player, especially one that just got paid. Um, so I think that the first week you'll see him not get targeted as much. Who did the Cowboys play the first week?
It's a great question.
I should know this. But depending on who they play, it really depends like how extensive they're gonna play. Yeah. See, they play the Browns.
Cleveland Browns, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's a hard hitting team, and so you don't want somebody that hasn't even touched his helmet, touched his shoulder pads. Haven't. I mean, he's been working out, but I mean, as you know, working out by yourself and working out with the team that you get shoulder struck, there's no tackling, there's no hitting and that sort of thing. So your first hit's going to be against the Cleveland Browns, arguably the best defense in the league. That's going to be tough. So I think the first week they're going to kind of take it easy, because then they have the Saints, which that would be a little bit better way to kind of ease somebody else in. So yeah, but yeah, so finally he got paid. I mean, I'm always happy to see somebody's hard work and rise to the top and actually pay off. So
I'm with you on that.
our next topic is going to be Jahan Dotson gets traded to the Eagles. Jahan Dotson was the number 2 receiver on the Commanders, and he got traded to a divisional rivalry to the Eagles for I think a third-round pick.
Third and 2/7.
A third and 2/7. So as a Commander
Essentially
fan,
a
how do
bag
you
of chips.
believe? You said what?
I said essentially a bag of chips is
Oh
what
yeah,
he
right.
got him for. It's an interesting move to say the least, because with the wide receiver core for the Commanders, it is literally just Terry McLaurin, Diami Brown. I think Martavis Bryant made it. I could be wrong there. It's Zacchaeus. All these like no names really are on our roster, and us to send our second best receiver, who was kind of having a lackluster past couple of years. I know he had a really nice rookie campaign a couple of years back, but to send him to an in-division rival for scraps for a previous first-round pick, I truly didn't understand why we did that as the organization to give it to him. But when it comes to the Eagles side of things, they needed a third head on the receiving aspect, because I think Goddard's hurt right now. He's listed questionable, and so you're kind of iffy on him when his return is for 100% health. But there's a lot of weapons on that offense, so you're excited as an Eagles fan. I know Noah's probably happy days. He's dancing to see that he's getting some more Commanders folks and interdivisional rivals players like even Barkley. So the Eagles offense is stacked. And I think with Jahan going to him, I think it's a good ad. It'll open up more opportunities for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, just being that third asset on the field. He'll come in like a 12 personnel, be in that slot so that AJ and Devontae are out wide, or Devontae slides into slot and then have Jahan outside so that it opens up different avenues for their receiving core. Even Goddard, if he's healthy, can help out be in the flats and just have streamers down the field with Smith, Brown, and Jahan. So it pretty awesome offense that they got building right now.
Yeah, so since it's an awesome offense, do you think that it's going to hurt anybody fantasy wise? Like obviously it's going to help the Eagles offense, but do you think that it will take away touches from AJ Brown or Devontae Smith or even Goddard?
I think it honestly bolsters their fantasy points. Just being another threat out there to think of. They're going to not have double coverage on AJ Brown or like zone focus him. There'll be more opportunities for him to be on one-on-one coverage, man. So I think he'll have more red zone targets or have a better turnout when it comes to his seasons, because there was a fall off last year where he started basically as wide receiver 3 for the first 9 weeks and then fell off from there towards the end of the year. So that consistency that Jahan could bring will translate into AJ Brown having a better year, even Devontae having a better year. So I don't think it nullifies them or takes away targets. I think it just improves their stock going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that Eagle wise it's going to affect them that much. I think it might affect Scary Terry, Terry McLaurin, and maybe even Jaden Daniels. However, I do think that it's going to improve. What's his name? What's his name from the Chargers that they just picked up?
Oh, Eckler?
Eckler, yeah, because they were. I mean, I think in the preseason or in practices and stuff, they brought Eckler out into the slot. So now Eckler might even be the second target in the passing offense, which is crazy to say, but that might, if you are a PP, if you are in a PPR league, you might have get Eckler, especially because Eckler's going late. But I'm just confused about this trade. Number one, from the Eagles, I guess. Well, if you got a good receiver for a bag of chips, I guess I understand. But more about the Commanders. I mean, there's so many different teams that need a receiver that was really the best offer that you can get. Like we have the Chargers and the Bills that we mentioned in previous episodes. We have I mean, maybe even the Steelers, they're kind of off with Ayuk right now, but I mean, why not get another good receiver? So I'm just confused on why they would want to go. The Patriots also, like the Patriots don't
Mhm.
really have a true number one. So I'm just kind of confused on why they would want to go within their division and not win the trade. Like I understand if you get a second round and a sixth round or something like that. If you won the trade, yeah, that's cool. But then why do it? That's I'm just confused about that. Confused about it, but yeah.
Yeah, it could be interesting. The long play of it, since we are lacking outside of McLaurin, is maybe we put in a different offer to Ayuk,
Hmm.
where I mean we take that third 2/7, throw in a first round pick, maybe even two, and just say, hey, we want Ayuk. This is the best offer we can get. Then you have McLaurin, Ayuk, Diami Brown. I think we have Jamison Crowder too. So then it bolsters the wide receiver core just a smidge more. I think we'd still need a third true, like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 type wide receiver out there. But outside of that, it could be a long play of getting Ayuk, since it's been kind of quiet so far with the
Mm.
Steelers, and if he's going to stay with Sam Fran. So could be something in the mix there.
That's an interesting point. I didn't even think about that because they might just be the dark horse of the whole Ayuk trade. I mean, it's kind of like Ayuk's kind of going back and forth. I want to stay in. I want to stay in San Francisco, but I also want to get paid in the Steelers, and then I also want to play with my college quarterback, and like I feel like
Mhm.
he's uncertain. So if all parties he's trying to make all parties happy, but at the same time you can't, because this is a business, and it's a lot harder when one party has a mentality of this when the other party completely disagrees. So it's going to be interesting. That Ayuk trade is definitely interesting, but that's an interesting outlook to see. This might be like, a way to have them get more draft picks in order to trade with the Niners. Um, but speaking of an ex-Steeler, Juju Smith returns to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, if you don't know the story about Juju, he actually got drafted with the Steelers. I believe he went straight to Kansas City, and then after Kansas City, he went to won a Super Bowl there, and actually he's infamous about that controversial holding call that helped lead the Chiefs to the Super Bowl against the Eagles. And then he got released or traded to the Patriots, and then now the Chiefs are back. He's back with the Chiefs. So, do you think this is a good move for the Chiefs? Do you think that Juju is washed? And then how far do you think that Juju is in the depth chart? Because the Kansas City this offseason has really improved that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I'm definitely kind of slightly surprised by the Chiefs doing this and making this move on Juju. I truly didn't see it coming, him being signed anywhere. He kind of was written off and forgotten about. Um, so I'm slightly surprised that they made this move, but he does know the offense. It's a familiar face for Mahomes. So the transition back into this space isn't going to be too hard for him since he knows his role and is probably going to assume the same role as a bigger body receiver, which I think would be kind of to replace Marquise Brown for the moment, since he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And then they also cut Tony. So, a lot of movement in this wide receiver core too. But you have Rashee Rice, you have Xavier Worthy, you have Juju now, you have Marquise that'll be coming back soon. You still have Nicole Hardman. So you have a lot of fast, shorter receivers, I should say. So you
Nothing
want
wrong
that?
with being short.
No,
I'm just
short
saying.
kings,
Yeah,
short kings
exactly.
everywhere. But basically, just to have that big body physical receiver to have is definitely useful. Uh, so I think he's going to assume a nice role within this offense. I don't think he'll have like a fantastic fantasy year, but it'll be a nice role player for this offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Chiefs, ever since they lost or they lost Tyreek, they just have needed a receiver with hands, and their receiving core is really really young. So I think this is a good addition. It's not going to hurt the Chiefs at all. I mean, at the end of the day, you still have Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes and a great defense, and just like last year, that's all you really need. They kind of proved it last year that that's all you really need, but and their only weakness was their receivers just could not catch, and that's why Rashid Rice really popped off, is because he was the only receiver besides Travis Kelsey that could catch.
Mm-hmm.
So getting Juju, I think, will definitely improve. I'm not gonna touch him in my fantasy league or anything like that. But if we're just strictly talking football, I think this is a good addition for the Chiefs. But um, that being said, that concludes our around the league news, and we're going to now go to our next segment, which is predictions for the South. So we're gonna rank the NFC South, and we're gonna um, tell you if we think each team is gonna go over their win total or under their win total. Um, so this division, I feel like everybody kind of agree might be the worst division in football. I think that they probably have the lowest amount of win totals in a combined. I know for the past years, I feel like ever since Drew Brees left, even with Tom Brady here in the division, they really weren't even really knocking on anybody's heels. So, how would you rank their divisions? This division, who do you think is going to win the division? And then, would you go over and under on each team?
Yeah, so I think this one will be a pretty fun division for the top two slots. I know we've had some banter here a couple weeks back. I think this will be a fun division overall. It's youthful players, up and coming. There's a bunch of teams that are rebuilding, like the Panthers, Saints that are kind of in between. They're in cap hell usually. And they are still in cap hell, and so they're kind of just playing with the pieces that they have. But when it comes to it, I think the Bucks will actually go over their win mark. I think they're set for 7.5 wins. I think they're actually going to be around 9 to 10, so they're going to clear the over on this one, and it's going to be a tight race with them with the Falcons as well. I think this one they're going to go under 9.5, be at 9 wins exactly. So it's going to be that foot race, like I mentioned in previous episodes. But I think the Buccaneers, they clear, they're over, be around 9 to 10 wins, most likely 10 wins. Falcons fall at 9. And then we come down to the last two teams, that being the Saints and the Panthers. Pretty low over unders for both. Saints wise, I have them hitting the under on this. I think they hit exactly 7 wins going forward in this season. And then last but not least, the Panthers. Um, you could surely hope with the offseason moves that they've made and trying to give Bryce Young some new targets, new faces. I still don't think it does you a ton for this year. I think next year may be the year where you see that growth potential. But on this, they're hitting the under. They're going to hit 5 wins. Probably 4 is their true low. I think they'll have a 4 win season. But to answer your question, when it comes to the division, how it's going to play out, Buccaneers taking the division, Falcons right there in second, Saints in at third, and then the Panthers coming in last, unfortunately.
Okay, so I agree. I feel like this division is very top heavy as
Mhm.
the NFC East. I feel like that's also very top heavy, but I think I would just switch the top two. I mean, as you mentioned previous episodes, we've kind of debated about who's going to win this division, and I feel like the Falcons have just not only improved their offense with Kirk Cousins,
Mhm.
but they also got a new coach and improved their defense. So I think with all three of those things, that they're gonna win the division. I have them at 10 wins, so just over 9.5. And then I have the Bucks at, actually I have them at 8 wins. I
Eight
feel
wins.
like
Okay.
there's gonna be some games where they're kind of they're not gonna do as well as they should.
Mhm.
Then I have the Saints at 6 wins, so I think they're going to place third in the division. And then finally, I have the Panthers at 4 wins. I think the offseason moves that they have made are just not enough for Bryce to really excel. Um, so which kind of sucks because I feel like they needed more a little bit more pieces in their offensive line rather than their receiving core. But
I agree
um,
100%. They had some young talent with Mingo, and then they go and get Deontay Johnson and then Xavier Leggett. So it's kind of pushing him into a smaller and smaller role. Even Terrence, I think it's Terrence Armstrong. They brought him in a couple years ago. So all these youthful talent that they put draft capital in are just kind of being pushed away slowly and but surely. And then they keep Thielen as well, who's what in his mid 30s now too.
yeah.
So it's interesting what they did with their offense and that receiving core. I think there's a lot of young talent surrounding Young, but you got to bolster that O line, improve the defense, and then you have a true shot.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that was our predictions for the NFC South. We're gonna switch it over to the AFC South. So this division, I feel like, was the most surprising division last year. The
Mhm.
Texans came out of nowhere. The Colts came out of nowhere, but then Anthony Richardson got hurt, so then people thought there's gonna be a big drop off, and there truly wasn't. And then there's the Jags where they thought they were gonna win the division, but then they ended up getting third last year. So and the Texans won the division based off that, what was it, 4th and 1, and the guy dropped it, like it
Mhm.
was kind of a lower throw, and he ended up dropping it and losing the game, or else the Colts would have won that division last year. So I feel like the AFC South is the biggest surprising team, the biggest improved team too. So how do you think that they are going to do, each team?
Yeah, like you mentioned, this division has a lot of young QBs. I mean, you have Titans with Will Levis, Colts with Anthony Richardson, Texans with CJ Stroud, and I mean, Trevor Lawrence is in, I believe, year 4.
He was drafted
So still,
2021.
yeah, so he's still pretty young in that regard. He's the most tenured in this division. So it is really exciting to see how this division will play out, especially with the surgence of the Texans. I mean, the fall of the Jaguars definitely has to be studied because they were coming out hot early in the season and then just hit a brick wall. And I was disappointed. I had ETN, and they just kept missing opportunities to win games. But to answer your question, I think when it comes to the Texans, they're going to hit the over on this one. They're going to be at 10 wins. I just have a lot of faith in this young team. DeMarco Ryan is a great coach and just building a great atmosphere and culture for the Texans. And then when it comes to the Colts, I think they're going to hit the under. I don't have a lot of faith in this team. They're going to be a run heavy offense. So Anthony Richardson is probably not going to have the fantasy season that you're hoping. He does have that upside of being a dual threat QB, being able to run. But I think with him missing basically the entire season and then coming into this one, he's still going to have that rookie kind of campaign. So I think they'll be around 8 wins in the division. And then my Jaguars, I think they hit the over. This is me being very hopeful. I think they hit 9 wins, come second in the division. And then the Titans, unfortunately, will take last place. And then I have them hitting the over, though, and taking 7 wins. I think Will Levis will pull out of his ass and have a really some really fantastic game-winning drives, like he did a couple. I think it was last year against the Steelers. It
Hmm.
was a really cool end of game to
But we
lead his team.
won. Just
Yeah,
saying, we
oh,
won.
you did win. Okay, I I knew it was a
He made
real
it
close
close.
game,
Yeah.
but he made it very very close. So I think he'll actually pull it off in this regard in this season and eke out some wins. So I think to answer the whole structure, I think Texans win it, Jaguars in second, Colts in third, and then Titans finishing last in the division.
Hmm. Okay. So I agree that the Titans, I think, are going to be the dark horse. I think they're going to be like the Cardinals last year, where they're going to be one or two score games. There's going to be plenty of one or two score games, but I don't think that their record is going to show how good they are.
Mhm.
But I also have them at I actually have them at 5 wins, so that's gonna I have them on the under. But like I said, I think they're gonna be a really good team, but their record is not gonna show for it.
Mhm.
I have the Jags actually at 6 wins, so I think they're gonna be third in the division. I just think that they lost a lot. They didn't lose a lot, but they lost the confidence that they once had, that they're the kings of the South type of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that the Texans and the Colts are just going to be a lot better. Then I have the Colts. I think that even though this is technically AR's second season, I think this is truly going to be his, just like his rookie season.
Mhm.
I am pretty high on him. As of most people, I think that with even though they didn't do too much throughout the off season, I think that they are sticking with their guns, and I think that they are going to get second. And they were so close last year. I just know throughout the whole entire offseason, during training camp, they're just preaching. Like, all right, this is going to be our year. We were so close last year. But unfortunately, it's not going to be their year because I think the Texans are going to win. However, I have them at 9 wins. So this division's actually going against the AFC East. So the Jets, Dolphins, Bills, and Patriots, but not really including them. So those 3 teams are going to be a really tough opponent to them, as well as the NFC North. So that's the Lions, the Bears, and the Packers. So I'm actually very excited to watch the Texans going against such great opponents. But so I think that they will only have 9 wins. I don't think that they're going to win all of those tough matchups. So they'll probably win some. Like, I feel like they're going to beat the Bears, for example. It's going to be a close one in Green Bay. But I have them at 9. So it goes Texans with 9 wins, Colts with 7, Jags with 6, and Titans with a 5. So
solid choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't disagree. That is a pretty hard schedule.
Yeah. So, but that concludes our second segment. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll catch you on the flip. YouTube, welcome back. As you know, if you missed the first section or first hour, my name is Nimmer, and I'm actually filling in for Drew. He is unable to make the podcast, so I will be your co-host for this podcast. To the side of me is Darian Pickett, and we are the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. Please follow us on all social medias: Instagram, I was gonna say Twitter, and TikTok, but X and TikTok. Please like and subscribe. And Drew will be here tomorrow. So we go live every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So come check them out tomorrow. But in this section, we're going to talk about this is going to be more dedicated towards fantasy. So for the fantasy season, is there anything that you foresee happening? So like last year, there was a lot of quarterbacks getting hurt. I think they said 55 quarterbacks or 50 some odd quarterbacks played last year. So how do you think that the fantasy season will go this year?
I mean, it's already shaping out to be a injury-ridden preseason. Hopefully, that doesn't carry over into the regular season. But to answer if it's going to be anything, I think it's probably going to be some really explosive wide receiver play. I think the chase for wide receiver 1 in rankings is going to be huge this year with having Justin back. Jamar is going to play. CD is going to play as well. And then having those dark horse candidates like Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to be a really exciting year, especially with all those QBs being healthy and slinging it to those young receivers. I think the chase for wide receiver 1 is what's going to be the biggest fantasy draw.
Yeah, I agree, especially because most of the players that you just named just got paid. I mean, Justin Jefferson in this offseason just got paid to the highest non-quarterback. CD just got paid, I think, yesterday or today. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're really going to be able to put essentially their money where their mouth is. So yeah, it's going to be interesting also to see if this is still going to be a wide receiver driven league, and the running backs are kind of going to be dropping off, or running backs are going to be more a dual threat where they're going to pop out of the backfield, and it's going to be more of a passing position or a catching position rather than just put your head down and run. So it's going to be interesting to see that in that aspect. So I do have a question. So you are notorious for trades. For
that I am.
Reason. For the audience, right after we got done with the draft, Darian just went to almost each individual. I don't want to say each individual, but like went to a couple people and was like, "So what do you want for so and so? So what do you want?" Like he's already trying to get trades done. So let's do a over under 30 trades this season. Over under.
Oh, 30 trades.
All right, let's say 15 trades this season.
I'm going to say right on the dot, I am going to attempt 15 trades this year. Okay. Warranted, very good trades, I will add. That 15 is going to be where we're at. And I think I'm going to successfully nab 5 of those trades. So I'm going to have a 33% success rate there. A third of the time I'm going to get a trade in and actually have it come to fruition and change my team. But yeah, I'm going to shy away from what I did in years past, being in plus like 20, 30 attempted trades. But yeah, I'll hover around 15.
All right, yeah. I feel like last year there was a lot more trades that's going to happen this year. I feel like a lot of people were really content with their team. Obviously, this is going to be different with injury, God forbid injury or anything like that. But I feel like there's going to be a lot less trades within our league. Maybe other leagues are going to be different, but I know our league's probably not going to have as many trades.
No,
But
I agree.
that
I think it'll be a trade low,
yeah.
uh, a low trade year. I think it'll be like, I mean, with just how they drafted, the rest of the boys did, except for Austin. But he's probably going to be a focal point for some trades just with how he drafted and his shtick.
Hmm.
So
I
it'll be
definitely looked
interesting.
at his roster a couple of times to see if I wanted to trade. Um, but that leads us into our first segment, um, which is roster report cards. So, in this segment, we are going to judge our fantasy team's roster. So, today we're going to go over mine, Darian's, and then the champion from last year's roster. If you want us to grade your roster, please DM us on Instagram with a picture of your starters and then another picture of your bench, and we will grade them next Wednesday. Please also include the draft position that you drafted in, as well as how many people in your league. How many people are in your league? So because that kind of makes a difference. So yeah, DM us on Instagram, and we'll love to give you our honest opinion. But the first roster that we're gonna grade is actually gonna be yours, Darian. So a um a funny a funny thing about Darian's roster is that after every draft, ESPN gives you a grade of your draft, or it gives you a prediction of how you're gonna do, and then it sends you an email of your actual grade, your grade of how you drafted. So Darian got ninth, and when I mean Darian, I've never seen Darian this disappointed. It was very disappointing in Darian's eyes. So, do you want to defend it? Do you agree with ESPN, or do you want to defend yourself?
So I don't know what ESPN was on, but giving me the ninth ranked team in this draft, just above Austin, that is what freaking sent me into a rage and a pure disappointment. You know, it's hard to have a strategy when you have a team or like a player in our league like Austin, which totally messes it up on the 10-11 turn with some of his picks, which we will get into in a later episode. It shifted the draft board for everybody, but I think with the grading, I mean, giving me a C as well, I just I think it's a lie. It must be taking into account that CD was out for the first week. Could be something of that matter, like he's a dead slot or a dead spot on my team. Who knows? But to put me at ninth, oh, it hurt. Yeah, I don't see what could possibly be wrong with the team. I mean, my two starting wide receivers are CD Lamb and Devontae Adams. CD arguably being in contention for a wide receiver one. Devontae finished, I believe, wide receiver 10 last year. He's ranked to be around wide receiver 9. And then you slide in Debo and DJ. DJ having a great season last year. Finishing around wide receiver 7, and then Debo finishing at wide receiver 8. That's a hell of a great wide receiver core. I will say I'm pretty lacking in the running back department. I love Travis Etienne. I redrafted him this year. He has that RB2 upside, meaning that he'll be right outside McCaffrey. Um, he was RB3 last year. I mean, he was very touchdown dependent to get there, but I think he can have that same kind of season like he did last and still be top, uh, I would say top 5 running back. And then a sleeper in my eyes being Ramondre Stevenson, coming in at my second starting spot for my running backs. I think he's going to have a bounce back year, just with the catch passing or pass catching upside. Excuse me. Um, so I think solid core there, and then I threw in Trey McBride, uh, great youthful tight end out of Arizona. But all in all, in a good starter summary, wide receivers and running backs are pretty good. I'd give it a B plus in that regard. I think where everything went to shit is my QB. I did not want Kirk Cousins. I never ever wanted Kirk Cousins. He doesn't have the rushing upside, but there's teams that have three QBs and utilize those QB spots and are waiting for trades. And I just don't think I have the gut to give up any of my starters for a QB like that. So I'm going to be focusing Kirk and then waiver wire for my QB play in the season. So I'm going to be hopeful. Um, but all in all, I'd grade myself starter wise probably around a B plus, not a C. And then bench, um, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, Jaden Reed, David Njoku, Joshua Palmer, Zach Charbonnet, and then I didn't draft Curtis Samuel. I just picked him up off of waivers today. I drafted Jahan Dotson just as a cheeky little grab, but then when they changed his point total to from I think it was 10 points to 3.5, I said I'll get him off my team. But bench wise, I think I have a solid running back core there on the bench, just waiting for like RB2 upside, meaning kind of the outskirts of RB1 territory.
So you'd grade it a B plus?
I'd give it a B. B plus is my grade for my team. What's really killing myself is Kirk, and then I think the bench is pretty good. Outside of, I mean, I handcuff Charbonnet. I think it's a B. B plus. That's my
Yeah.
range.
So I would give it, and drop in the comments what you would grade it, and maybe the reason why. But for us, for me, I probably would give it a solid B, B minus maybe. I think Kirk definitely throws
Mhm.
your quarterbacks off. Granted, we have I know we have two teams I believe that have three quarterbacks,
Yeah.
we're actually going to grade one later on. But so you have Kirk, which I don't like. You also have Stevenson, which I don't like. I don't really like that your RB2 is on the Patriots. Honestly, I think the Patriots are not going to do as well, and he didn't do well last year. And so I don't see him really popping off that like that. So that was a knock. And then you got DJ Moore in the fourth round. I feel like you could have gotten somebody else like Waddle or somebody. The Chicago, I'm really trying to stay away from. But if anybody in Chicago, I would get DJ Moore. So it wasn't too bad of a pick, but that was kind of iffy for me. And then I'm also not big on two tight ends. I especially with McBride is probably going to be top 5 fantasy team. So I feel like you didn't need to draft Njoku, even though I'm pretty high on him. But I feel like there was probably another running back maybe available for that. And then like as you kind of mentioned, your running back core is pretty low. I mean, you have David Montgomery, which he was more of a red zone back, so he was kind of up and down. I mean, last year he did really well, but it was more touchdown dependent. Etienne's more touchdown dependent. Brian Robinson Jr., I think you're gonna replace him with Stevenson throughout the league. I think he's gonna really do well, especially with Eckler going out in the slot.
Mhm.
But and you also got Jaden Reed, so I'm not big on the Green Bay running backs, as we kind of mentioned in earlier episodes. But so I probably would give you a solid B minus. I wouldn't give you a C. I feel like a C is you definitely have, and you have the Steelers defense, so that's definitely like one of the best defenses in the league. So I definitely would give you a solid B in my ranking.
Hey, I'll take a B. We'll ride into top 6. That's all I need.
Yeah,
One good trade, and I'm there.
you might need a couple good trades to be honest, but we'll
Okay,
see.
we gonna make it happen.
There you go. Okay, so now you can grade my team. So this is my team. Now I would grade myself a B as well. I think my team's just above yours. I probably would rank yours maybe 6 or 7, and mine would be 5 or 6. But I pretty much got a lot of the people I really wanted. I got Kyler Murray. I got Kyron Williams. I got Amon Ra. I really, really wanted him first round. Got Kyle Pitts. Got the Jets defense. Got Scary Terry. Rico Dowell. I really liked. So I got a lot of the people that I really wanted. I really wanted Cooper Cup, but he got picked before I could. I would have put him instead of DK, but he got picked up before I could draft him. There were a couple mistakes looking back at it that I will admit that I made. Instead of Rashad White, I should have got Kenneth Walker. And then instead of Chase Brown, I should have got Warren. I don't know how I didn't see Warren. I think that was a lot of like a lot of us didn't really see Warren,
Mhm.
and then he just kept on falling, and then Dev ended up picking him up. And what's funny is right when I put my little sticker on the board, I went to go sit down to cross his name off, and then I saw Warren, and I was like, oh man, I should have got Warren, but the injury kind of made me a little skeptical, I guess. But
Mhm.
those are probably the two biggest mistakes I made. But other than that, I feel like I mean, Kyron's gonna be RB1. Rashad White is RB1, which they don't really have a competing back. Amon Ra, obviously. DK is wide receiver one. Kyle Pitts, I really like because um, Kirk Cousins loves his tight ends. I mean, if you look at last season, T.J. Hawkinson popped off with Kirk Cousins,
Mhm.
so that's I'm hoping for that. And then I think that Kyle Pitts is good. They're gonna put him out in red zone at like by himself, and they'll just do a jump
Mhm.
ball because he's ginormous. Waddle, I mean, it's a PPR league, so I know he's gonna have a lot of the slants and the Dolphins offense. Scary Terry, I'm kind of upset that Dotson got traded because now he's going to be um, doubled a lot more, and
Mhm.
so this was before the trade, so I didn't have him. I wanted George Pickens, but he got drafted the same round before Scary Terry, so I was left him. Really like the Giants Jets defense. Sutton's number one. Gus Edwards number one running back. Chase Brown is more. There's a lot of upside there. Rico Dowell, I really like. That's going to be the biggest sleeper in the draft. And then the other three, I was just like, I kind of just question marks, and hopefully
Mhm.
they do good, but we'll see. So yeah, so after that big rant, I would give myself a B plus probably. I wouldn't give myself an A. I feel like if I did those two things, those
Mhm.
with Walker and Warren, then I would have gave myself an A. But looking back at it, I should have done that. And if I had Cooper Cup, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd definitely say it's a B plus. I think you're pretty accurate on that, especially with your starting lineup. I love your wide receivers. Honestly, I mean Amon Ra, I was high on in the draft. I even contemplated drafting him, but I mean, with when CD slides to
Yeah,
four,
you
you
couldn't.
gotta pull the trigger. DK, I think, is going to be what he does best. He's going to outplay his ADP. So I forget what he was going into the season, but he's probably going to be a top end wide receiver. I wouldn't call him like wide receiver one contention, but he's going to outplay his ADP. He's going to be in red zone targets and get you some meaningful points when you need it. Waddle, I think he's due for a breakout year. I think that was a sneaky ad, especially with how he fell in the draft. Um,
Sorry.
the only issue that he's going to really fall into is if he gets injured. If he stays healthy all year, he's going to have a phenomenal year. And then I like Terry being Terry. He's a great athlete, great receiver for the Commanders. When it comes to your bench, I think that's where there's a fall off in a sense. Cortland, I talked about it last episode, I believe, or the episode before. He is like crazy touchdown dependent. Like last year, he had 10 touchdowns and still didn't amass 1,000 yards receiving. So with him having a rookie QB and Bo Nix, I don't think he's going to get the same amount of touchdown target share. I could be wrong, but I think that one was an iffy move. I would have stayed away from Broncos receivers. Gus was a great pickup as one of your fringe. He could be a flex play. being in a hardball offense, which is run heavy, pass second, he's going to have a great year. Same with rookie Kamani Vidal, I think is how you pronounce his name. They both should have really good years. And then Chase Brown, he's had a lot of momentum in media. Everyone's high on him. I think he's a pretty good ad. And then Rico was a pretty dope ad as well. Um, for me, for my likings, a ton of running backs. I would have maybe drafted maybe one more high end receiver before snagging Sutton or I forget who was on the board. Maybe just having a little bit higher of a receiver in that regard, and then flushing out with perhaps like a backup defense with from the Jets or outside the Jets. But Demario Douglas is a good pickup. People are high on him as well. Thielen, I'm iffy on just due to age, but overall, I really like your team. I think it is gonna outplay its projected points every week. Where I think this week you're projected 135. I think you'll outplay that. It'd be around maybe 140, 142, but that's all hypothetical. Um, so definitely a really good team. I think you do edge me on how good of a team it is. Rashad White is good too. Kyron, I will say, is kind of iffy on for me if he gets hurt. That's why I think Quaz handcuffed with Blake Corum, which was a sneaky ad. But I like your team overall. I think it's going to be good. It's dynamic. It's got the pass catching running backs in that upside as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was looking for, especially with a PPR league. I feel like I
Mhm.
mentioned before, that I think that this season is going to be more pass catching running backs, and that's how
Mhm.
running backs are really going to pop off. But I should have said this before. Darian, your number pick for the audience, Darian was pick 4, and I was pick 6. So that's essentially what we drafted with. I was kind of upset. I probably shouldn't have picked Sutton. I just thought number receiver, he's definitely the receiver number 1. Everybody else is either receiver 2. Like, I probably, looking back, I probably should have got Keon Coleman.
Mhm.
I probably should have got him instead, but I saw Sutton there, and I said, I know Bo Nix really likes Sutton, so maybe this is going to be a different year. But one thing I really kind of wish I had got, at least, was probably another quarterback, just in case Kyler doesn't shape out, um, or even Kyle Pitts. I probably should have gone 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, even though I'm not a big fan of that, just because I'm kind of gambling on both of those. And I should have drafted a little bit better. But I mean, I probably wouldn't have drafted him until like the third to last round, instead
Mhm.
of Thielen, Douglas, or Shaheed. But by that time, there's no good quarterbacks. I don't think there was a quarterback drafted in the last 3 rounds, and no good tight ends either. Um, so I was kind of looking back at the board, and I was like, okay, like I probably should have, but then I'd have to give up one of the other picks that I really liked. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, so that's my roster. Now our last grade is going to be our champ, Ricky Wisdom. So this is going to be his roster. He actually ended up being pick number 1, which he got 5th chose. So what we did, in order to pick our draft order, we did that whole like draft competition with 10
Mhm.
events that we mentioned in previous episodes, and and he actually got 5th in the rankings, but everybody picked. I think it went like 3, 4, 5, and then 2, and then Ricky picked 1. So this was the number 1 pick. That this is their lineup. Would you like to grade first?
Yeah. I mean, giving Rick a pick 101 was a mistake on all our parts. We probably should have shifted ourselves down one just to really get him into later rounds. So he actually had to like pick and choose. But getting 101, you got Christian McCaffrey, which is always a solid pick. I'm iffy on him just going into this year with a calf injury. He's had injuries in the past that have taken him out of games. I'm hoping for Ricky's sake that he stays healthy and he puts up true RB1 numbers like he did last year. But if he does get hurt, it's going to damage his team a lot because outside of that, he's got, when I mean wide receiver twos, they are their team's wide receiver twos. So that of Puka Nakua, Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, Keenan Allen, those are all wide receiver twos on their teams. He doesn't have a true standout wide receiver one. I mean, you could argue Puka eclipsing Cooper, but I think Cooper's going to have a fantastic year, and you'll see a regression in Puka. So that's my only issue with it. I mean, Alvin Kamara, he's getting up there in age, but he's was on pace for I think 112 receptions. And Derek Carr loves the check down. So this was a great grab by Ricky to complement Christian McCaffrey. So two solid running backs. I mean, you get QB1 in Josh Allen as well. That top of his lineup is super strong. And then when it gets down into it, I think where it starts to lack is his bench. But this is what Ricky's strategy was last year: is great starters and then have a questionable bench. I think that's why he went with three QBs, because he had Josh Allen get hurt at one point, and then was kind of scrambling the Jets to find a QB. So he wanted to bolster that, getting Dak and Herbert, which have been notorious for being top 10, top 15 QB in the league. So smart move there, just to give himself a backup there. And then what else do I see? And getting some rookies there with Xavier Legette and Brian Thomas Jr., two safe options there. I think they have some pretty high upside. And then also snagging the Browns, which is arguably one of the best defense in the league. And then also Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, questionable for me, just due to injury, due to age. And I just want to see how Lamar's going to use him this year. But I definitely give this a high B plus, A minus territory. More, I'd say A minus, because the only issue is the wide receiver two aspects. No top high value wide receiver, but I really like this team a lot.
Interesting. So, as I've kind of mentioned, this is one of the teams that have three quarterbacks. So, and I talked to him before, and that's like as you said, Darian. He said that his first two quarterbacks got hurt, so he wants to be cautious and get the three quarterbacks. Um, but honestly, I mean, I'm sorry, Ricky, but I'm not really in love with your team. I probably would give it probably a C plus. Um, yeah. So this is why definitely the wide receivers. The wide receivers definitely knock it down a lot because
Mm,
he has Puka. Each receiver is competing. He has Puka with Cooper Cup, Devontae Smith with AJ Brown, Tank Dell with Nico Collins and Diggs, Keenan Allen with CJ. I'm sorry, DJ Moore and Adoonsday and Cole Kmet. I mean, all there's no really receivers that really have that stand out as you mentioned. I mean, you have
mm,
Christian McCaffrey, which I feel like is the reason that he won last year. But and he probably will end up being the running back one again. If any running back were to do it, he Christian McCaffrey would be. Alvin Kamara is a great PPR running back, but I feel like the Saints just are not going to be it this year. I think that they're gonna stay away from the run. They're gonna try. They're gonna be playing from behind most of the games, and they're just not gonna run it as much. I'm pretty low on Josh Allen as well. I mean, I know he's the quarterback one, but he's a gunslinger, and I'm a Steeler fan, and Ben Roethlisberger was a gunslinger. Brett Favre was a gunslinger. What do they have in common? They throw a lot of interceptions. And without Josh Allen's that number one receiver that digs in, or even what's his name? The other receiver. What did he have last year? What was his name? I think he's on the Jags now.
oh,
Davis.
Gabe Davis, yeah,
Gabe
Gabe
Davis.
Davis.
Even if he was a wide receiver one, would be different. But um, I see Josh Allen doing well, but I feel like he's gonna throw at least 1, 2 interceptions each game, which is gonna drive his fantasy numbers down. I feel like 3 games in, he's gonna move to Dak. I think Dak is gonna have an amazing year this year. This is his contract year. CD just got paid. Now Dak needs to prove why he needs to get paid. So Dak's gonna do really really well. Austin Eckler, he's didn't do really good last year. Might do good this year. They might put him to the slot and they might give him a little bit screens, but he's not gonna really play as much. He's gonna go in for maybe a play, come back out, then go in for then 4 or 5 plays later. He's just gonna be a formation running back. I don't think that he's gonna do that well. Brian Thomas was a good ad. J.K. Dobbins is going to be more red zone player. I was kind of skeptical about him just because I'm kind of scared about him because I have Gus, so he's going to take a lot of touchdowns away from Gus. But last year in the Ravens defense, in the Ravens system, he didn't really play that much. He wasn't really a factor, so I'm hoping that's going to be the same as the Chargers. And then even with the tight end, I understand getting 2 tight ends, especially with Mark Andrews being out. But Tyler Conklin isn't the best. You definitely could have added, you could get him from waivers. No, I don't think a lot of people would really be drafting him. But that was his second to last pick, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, so that's really, and I'm definitely not really high on 3 quarterbacks. But I understand he kind of had PTSD from last year. He got both of his quarterbacks hurt, and he was scrambling, so he didn't want to do it again this year. So I get it. So I probably would give it a C plus B minus. And in ESPN, I forgot to mention, ESPN has him ranked 1. It has me ranked 7th, and then Darian ranked 9th, and it still has it ranked. So I don't think it was a CD thing, but. Yeah. So, let me ask you this then, Darian. If you were Ricky, right? And Ricky is notorious for not making any trades. So, the only reason that he's really going to change his roster or get his roster better or whatever is through waiver wire. Is there a specific strategy that you have for waiver wires, or how do you handle waiver wires? And is there anybody on the waiver wire that you kind of are looking out for?
Yeah, when it comes strategy wise for waiver wire, I always like to take into account week by week progression by a player. If he's picking up steam, picking up more target share, or he's being utilized in more formation. So you see his percentage on field increase. That's one thing I take note of. But also for me right now, I'm looking at QB play. So I'm seeing what their schedule is looking like, easy comp, if they're kind of on a interception throwing spree. I like to be mindful because I think I'm going to be a waiver wire week in, week out kind of thing. Maybe keeping Kirk on my bench and just kind of cycling through these guys that are left, like Baker, Geno, Matthew Stafford last year picked up towards the end of the year when Kupp and Puka was out there. He's on my watch list. But it's really just about when it comes down to the ease of schedule and then how they're playing and performing. But outside of that, there's really no strategy. You just try to be the first one on waivers. And if someone's hot, you pick them up, you throw them on the bench, and then you make somebody anxious to trade for them so you get capital out of it. So I like to add those cheeky players that I know are probably going to boom towards the later end of the year and have people, hey, what are you going to do with Dontavian Wicks? What are you going to do about Greg Dortch? Shit like that. But this year, what I need to learn is patience when it comes to waiver wire ads as well. Because I picked up Devon Achane, I think, second in the league. So if someone dropped him, I was like, oh, I'm going to add him just in case. and he wasn't getting any production for 1-2 weeks. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna drop him. Dropped him, and then I think Hooker or Devin picked him up, and he just went off 50 points, 40 points, 30 points, went crazy. So if you're going to pick up somebody cheeky who's picking up momentum or media is covering them, like, hey, get this guy, hold on to him, and wait till that pop off week.
Yeah, I feel like that's the hardest part for waivers because obviously you're getting him off waivers for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
this is obviously excluding injuries or anything like that, but he's on the waivers for a reason. So when you pick him up, you see something, but then how long do you wait? And then if you wait too long, you're just wasting a spot. And then if you don't, if you release him right away, something like that could definitely happen. Um, yeah, no, I think that waivers are definitely there's no really strategy because waiver wires, if the people that don't know, um, the first when you're on waivers or the beginning of the new week, the worst team always gets first grabs at the waiver wires. So if your team is doing really good, that's a good thing. But then at the same time, it also is a bad thing because you get last priority when it comes to the waivers. So then if somebody like Puka last year, I ended up getting Puka after the first game because I got demolished week one. But then I ended up getting Puka, and he ended up being should have been the offensive rookie of the year. Um, so it really is luck when it comes to that sort of thing. But I feel like the biggest strategy that I look at, wide receiver wise, is targets. How many targets are they getting a game, and why? Is it because that defense double teamed their number one option and he's the number two option? If he's the number two option, I might as well hold him on for a little bit just to see, because if he has a lot of targets but low points, that just means that he's dropping passes, or him and the quarterback aren't seeing eye to eye, which that can change week to week. But so that's really the strategy I have when it comes to receivers. But is there anybody on the waiver wires that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
Yeah, like I mentioned in last episode, deep sleeper is Greg Dortch. I'm going to keep an eye on him all season, see what his target share looks like, and if he's going to be explosive for that Cardinals offense. Outside of that, there really wasn't much last time I checked, like meat wise. Maybe Jalen Polk, wide receiver for the Patriots, just to see how that plays out, because May has been kind of ticking a few boxes. He's progressed since the last time we spoke about him. He's looking pretty good, but if you give him some time in the pocket and he can dish it out to his receivers, maybe the Patriots wide receivers are somebody you can look at going forward. But yeah, outside of that, really nobody high on my list. Maybe, I mean, what's in our league, Dalton Schultz, tight end for Houston, depending on how that goes with that offense. And then there's usually a pick and play for defenses week in and week out. But no true standouts as of yet on my radar besides Greg Dortch and perhaps Jalen Polk.
Okay. Yeah, and since you spoke on defense, there is somebody in our league, Jack Hooker. His where that's his strategy. His last two picks were kicker and defense because he just picks them based off matchups. So like if they're playing the Patriots, like the Bengals are playing the Patriots, so then he would pick up the Bengals defense if they're available, that sort of thing. So that is also another waiver wire strategy that you can do. I'm not a big fan because then you have to get a defense. You're kind of handcuffed when it comes to that sort of thing. But I mean,
Mhm.
he always lands top three every year, so it must be working. But as I mentioned when we were grading mine, I was really and you also mentioned where you're kind of keeping an eye out on quarterbacks. I'm keeping an eye on Will Levis. I feel like Will Levis is going to be do really really well this year. I don't know, maybe not fantasy wise, but he's definitely somebody I'm going to be looking out for, as well as Justin Fields. I feel like Justin Fields, once he becomes a
Yep.
starter, he's going to be doing really well. Tomlin said that he's going to announce the start of this week, the end of this week. I find it very, very hard to believe it's going to be Justin Fields, but I also wouldn't pick Russell Wilson. But Justin Fields is somebody I'm gonna be kind of eyeing because after we play Falcons week 1, so after that first loss, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. I mean, obviously I'm gonna think that they're gonna win, but if we lose, it's gonna be hard. Tomlin, the Steeler fans are gonna be really, really loud and want Justin Fields, but also we also have Jameson Williams, this wide receiver number 2 from the Lions. So that is somebody I'm kind of. Last year he was kind of hit or miss, but if you can get a wide receiver 2 in the waiver wire, you can't really complain about that. And as well as Darnell Mooney, who is the wide receiver 2 for the Falcons. And so with Kirk Cousins there, they're gonna him getting paid a bag. I think that he's gonna be slinging the rock a lot. So those are the 4 players I am keeping an eye out on. So yeah. Well, that concludes our episode. Thank you for listening in. Please leave a like and subscribe, as well as follow us on all social medias. And like I said, if you want us to grade your draft or your roster, send us a DM through Instagram and let us know your draft position, as well as how many people are in your draft, and we will grade them. Tomorrow, Drew is going to be the host again, so come back and see him. And I hope you guys all have a great night. See you tomorrow. Bye.